Starehe Manor YouTube channel. Today I am so excited. It is the 10th of September 2023. I just got some good news about Starehe Manor. Finally, we have a title deed for Starehe Manor and it is in my name. Like, guys, I cannot tell you how this news is exciting for me, because I started this process of the buying process for the Starehe Manor property in December of 2022. So this is almost 10 months later is when we have a title deed, and a lot has been happening in the background that I wasn't able to talk about. But I am so excited that finally we have this out of the way and I can talk about it. So sometime in April of 2023, this year, when we're just about to have the title deed of the land registered and transferred into my name, somebody came and put a caution on the land. And in a bit, we're going to talk about that. But I will give a full in-depth video of what it means to have a caution on your land, what that means for you, what is the process of having the caution removed, and all the nitty-gritties. I'm going to do a full video on that. So let me know in the comment section below if that is something you would be interested in. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to do today's video, just to share with somebody out there the land buying process in Kenya, because trust me, I have seen it all. So you want to sit back, take a notebook, and let's do some learning together. So when you're buying land in Kenya, generally you can decide to go through the process by yourself, or you can hire a lawyer to do it for you. But I would encourage you, even if you decide to go through a lawyer, please understand how the process works. So step number one, if you decide you're going to buy a property in Kenya, step number one in the land buying process in Kenya is to ask for the title deed, a copy of the title deed, or at least get to see the physical title deed itself, and then do a search at the Ministry of Lands to confirm who the real owners of the property are. As at the shooting of this video, this is going to cost you 520 Kenya shillings. This is about $3.5 US. So step number one, ask to see the title deed. Go and do your search at the Ministry of Lands. Step number two in the land buying process in Kenya is to do a search with the local authorities to check of any unpaid land rates. So if, let's say, you're buying your property in Syokimau, you will have to go to Athi River and confirm with the local authorities right there if there are any unpaid land rates. And then if there are any, you and the seller of the land need to agree who is going to be responsible, because remember, land cannot be transferred if there are any unpaid land rates. Step number three in the land buying process in Kenya is to go to the Ministry of Lands and buy two maps. Listen carefully, you need to go and buy two maps. One shows the exact measurements of the property that you are buying. It is called a mutation. And then the other one shows the neighboring pieces of property. Each map is going to cost you 350 Kenya shillings. That is about $2 or thereabout, $2 US. So make sure you get those two maps from the Ministry of Lands. And this is very easy. Just by giving the land title deed, you're able to get the two maps. Now, step number four in the land buying process in Kenya, with your two maps and a surveyor. But if you are very keen in your geography class, trust me, you don't even need a surveyor. You can do this step number four by yourself. Visit the property you are planning to buy and verify the details that are on that map, the first mutation, and also take a moment and look at the neighboring lands. Just by so all the maps will have like a north, they'll have like a compass, and you'll be able to tell where exactly your property sits and what other neighboring properties there are. Take an opportunity to talk to your neighbors if they are there, and just find out the history of this property. Step number five in the land buying process in Kenya, sit down with your seller and agree on the price. Once you have agreed on this, make sure, guys, this is very important, A lot of people skip this step, but trust me, you're gonna need it. Make sure you have a written agreement between yourself and the seller. This you can do by yourself. I do all my contracts by myself, but you can decide to engage a lawyer, and especially if you are let's say in the diaspora and you do not have the luxury of visiting your property every now and then, visiting the Ministry of Lands and doing all these other purposes, I highly encourage you to engage a lawyer, but it is not compulsory. Should you decide to go the route of a lawyer, according to the Law Society of Kenya LSK, if the value of your land is 1 million Kenya shillings and below, you will have to pay the lawyer just 3,000 Kenya shillings. If your property is above 1 million, you're going to pay 8,000 shillings for the contract or the agreement. How they come up with these figures is beyond me. I have no idea why the value of my property should determine the fees that I pay for the same property. As you are getting this agreement with the land buyer, as you are agreeing on the price, I highly encourage you to make sure that all the wives, or if it is a guy, if it is a lady selling you, make sure all her husbands, like all the spouses of your seller, must be present during this process. And where possible, if they have kids, make sure their kids are also present. Guys, this is a very important step, especially in the event that there will be issues. And trust me, most of these issues don't usually arise with the one who sells you the land. They usually arise, for example, once they die or once their kids grow up and then suddenly they start claiming these pieces of land. So make sure as you are bargaining this land, as you're coming up with an agreement, this guy's spouse is there, this is his wife or husband, and their kids. That's the process that I always take with all my property, and this especially is for village properties, those properties in up country or those like their ancestral and all that kind of land. Make sure you involve all their wives if they have more than one wives, all their husbands if they have more than one husband, and all their kids in that negotiation. Trust me, you will thank me later. Step number 6 in the land buying process in Kenya is, depending on what you agree with the seller, you're going to need to pay some money just to show the seller that you are committed to this process. But listen to me carefully. Do not pay the entire cost of the land, even if you have the money. Guys, trust me, do not pay for the entire cost of the land. I repeat, do not pay for the entire cost of the land, even if you do not have, even if you have all the money. Number 2, do not pay for this property in cash. You're going to need an audit trail. So do not pay for the property in cash, even if you have the money in cash. Do a bank transfer or an M-Pesa transaction, something that will have an audit trail. And if you are selling property, if you're buying property, let's say from a family, make sure that you ask them to open a joint account, because you don't want a case whereby, let's say, the money goes to the husband's account and then the wife comes up later and say, I didn't get any of this money. So that's what I did. Or if you're buying, let's say, from an ancestral piece of land, let's say it's a family selling, make sure all the brothers and sisters or whoever come up with an agreement and they can access that bank account. So for the Starehe Manor, for example, when I was buying the property, I made sure that when we were negotiating, the guy was there, his wife, his son, and his daughters were all there. And then I requested them to open a bank account. So the husband and wife opened a joint bank account, and this is where I was sending all the money. But sometimes I would send the money via M-Pesa, because thank God for M-Pesa bank statements. Somebody cannot come and say that they did not receive the money, and this is just in case by mistake you delete your M-Pesa message or something like that. But I have all my M-Pesa messages. And then also when we were negotiating the properties, I invited the chief of the area, came, the head of the village elder, and some of the neighbors were there. They gave me the story, history of the property, and I recorded all that on video, because you just never know what's going to happen. So as I've said, do a bank transfer or send an M-Pesa message, an M-Pesa transfer, because this shows evidence of who paid and to who the monies were paid, just in case, okay? Step number 7 in the land buying process in Kenya: book a meeting with the lands board, the lands control board, and then generally they meet once a month in around the country in Kenya. But you can, and this cost, if you go through the regular lands board, you're gonna pay just 1,000 Kenya shillings as of the shooting of this video. But you can request for a special lands board, which costs 5,000 shillings, and the land board will issue consent for the land to be sold. So generally, these are the official fees for the lands board, but trust me, you're gonna have to pay more than that, because you have to pay people sitting allowance, you have to beg them to come and sit there during those land boards. So this is a step that somebody can handle on your behalf, like let's say if you have a lawyer or somebody else. In my case, the surveyor handled this process on my behalf. I didn't have to go for any lands board. They did that. I just gave him some money and he did that whole process for me. But if you're able to, I would encourage you to attend the lands board and see exactly what happens in those lands board. This is where the consent is given for the land to be sold. So step number 8 in the land buying process, once you have received this consent, of course, before you go to the lands board and you've met with the chief, there's going to be some forms the chief is going to give you. Both you and the buyer you and the seller are going to fill in those forms. You're going to have to attach the seller's ID card, copy of his ID. You're going to attach his picture or her picture. You're gonna attach, so like as we are using, instead of like signatures, we're using thumbprints plus signatures. We use both thumbprint and signature, and then we all had witnesses on either side, and just make sure that that process is done. Get at least 3 copies of that, because you're gonna need 1 copy for yourself, the other one goes to the Ministry of Lands, and then you can give 1 to the seller as well. And I will advise you, I would rather give you a heads up, most of the time you're going to be paying for all these costs, including, so the chief, this is part of his work, but most probably they're going to ask you for some money to take this process, but it's not too much money, and trust me, it's worth it to keep things moving. So these are the documents you're going to attach and send to the lands board. The lands board is going to give consent, and there's a place where they also sign. You're going to attach all these documents. And then at this point, you can also pay some portion of the money. So like in my case, I paid about, I think it was 10% of the cost of the land when we agreed, and we met with the village elders and with the chief. And then once they went to the lands board, I paid another, I think 20% of the cost of the land. And then at this point, you can pay like maybe 50% if you want. It really depends on you and how you have agreed with the owner of the land. And then step number 9 in the land buying process in Kenya, with the consent from the Lands Control Board, recent search. This search must not be more than 6 months. And then you need clearance from your county land rates. And then your 2 maps, remember your mutation and the other map of the area. The agreement between you and the seller, your KRA PIN and the seller's KRA PIN, 2 passport photos of you and of the seller, and copy of the title deed plus the original. You use this and go to the Ministry of Lands and execute the change of ownership. Okay, so again, this is a process. You can outsource. I outsource it to my surveyor, but those are the documents you're going to need. Carry these documents and take them to the Ministry of Lands so that they can execute the change of ownership from the seller to you as the buyer. This costs 5,000 shillings. This is official price, but trust me, you're going to pay a lot more. So once I got to this stage, this is whereby, so originally we had done a search, we had submitted the documents. In fact, even the title deed had been printed. Just when it was about to be signed, some rogue person came and put caution on my property. And there started a very long, grueling process that I will do an entire whole video talking about how the caution, the whole process, what we did, how we went through removing it, and all that shenanigans. Took us close to 5 months just to go through this process. In between there, we had 3 registrars that were changed at the Ministry of Lands, and it was just crazy. But eventually we managed to get the title deed. So I got the news today from my surveyor. Step number 10 in the land buying process in Kenya. As at this stage, once you have gone to the Ministry of Lands, you have submitted the documents for the execution of change of ownership. At this stage, you do not need the seller at any point in time, unless, of course, like in my case, there was a caution that is put on your land or a caveat after you had started the process. So now what you need to go and do at this point is just follow up with the Ministry of Lands and make sure that the title deeds are changed into your name. And then once you go through that process, then you can finalize the payment with the land seller. So at this stage, something else you need to go and do is go and pay your stamp duty. So generally, this is pegged on the value of the land at the rate of 4% of the sales value in municipalities and 2% in non-municipality areas. So it depends on where your property is located. After this step, this land belongs to you, but before you go and start celebrating, go back to the Ministry of Lands and do a search to confirm that the property reads in your official names. Yeah, so before you celebrate, just go make sure that you do another search just to make sure that everything was done transparently and the property is still in your name. So guys, that's the summarized version of the land buying process in Kenya. That's exactly what I did. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you found it helpful, please do give the video a thumbs up, share it in your circles, and as usual, let me know in the comment section below if you've got any questions or you've got any comments, and I will see you on the next one. Make sure you to subscribe so that you can get more updates on Starehe Manor. And now that we have a title deed, guys, you can be sure it's gonna be progress back to back, back to back. I've been doing stuff there, but shingo upande, because I just wasn't sure how the entire caution process was gonna turn out and how long it was gonna take. But now that the property is in my name, guys, we're just gonna wait for the Lord to bless us, and it's gonna be miracles upon miracles, blessing upon blessing. Thank you guys for all the support. I will see you on the next one. Bye.